Grace and peace, dear church, from our Lord Jesus Christ to all of you here, all of you watching from home. I'm glad to be here back from my God on the road trip. I hope you have one of these koozies. And wherever you're going, please take one with you so we can share where God is at in the world as we keep the ministry alive during these summer months, summer weeks. The few, the proud, the summer worshiper. Thank you for being here. It's exciting to see God out in the world, and it was exciting to listen to the psalm today. Thank you, Chris. Where's that line about the showers and the rain? I thought, wow, that's timely. You visit the earth and water it abundantly. No kidding. It's been raining quite a bit lately, but today I'm here to talk about the God on the road trip that I just did. 2023, got on the road from here to Fort Moore in Georgia. That's an hour and a half south of Atlanta, Georgia. So I left here on Wednesday, and from here I went to Northeast Maryland. If you haven't been in Northeast Maryland, it's a town in the northeast of Maryland called Northeast Maryland. And there I visited Leroy and Katrina, a young couple that I married about 10 years ago. They have two beautiful children, and they will be baptized here at Good Shepherd in this year, at some point this year. So I'm excited to see that. And guys, if you're watching, I'm looking forward to baptize Evan and Evelyn here at Good Shepherd. Then from there, I crossed Maryland to stay right outside the Shenandoah Valley in a town called Front Royal. That later, I was told it was a dangerous town. I said, well, I don't care. I'm from Jersey. I'm tough. Get them ready for me. It was an uneventful night. I had in a hotel. And next morning, I went on this beautiful road in the Shenandoah Valley. Beautiful scenery. And from there to another famous road, the Blue Ridge Parkway, to Roanoke, Virginia, where I met the Osborns. They're doing great. They're having a wonderful life. They joined a great church in Salem, Virginia, that is a town over. And the pastor of that church, of course, is David Dribis, who was an intern here about 10 years ago. Someone keeps me honest. Speaking of someone keeping me honest, if the AC is not working, let me know, because it feels hot in here. It's just me? No, turn that AC, crank it up to 11. Anyways, so they're doing great in Salem with the church of Pastor Dribis, in College Lutheran Church in Salem, Virginia. Right across the street from Roanoke College, that I learned is a Lutheran college. I didn't know that, did you? Roanoke College, a Lutheran school, across the street from Pastor Dribis at College Lutheran Church, and he gets to ministry to young people in the congregation that gathers there, including several pastors and former bishops, because in the campus of the college is also the synod office for the Virginia Synod. So a wonderful place to worship and see how God is well and alive among us. So from there, from Roanoke, went back on the road to the Blue Ridge Parkway, south to North Carolina, and went to Highlands, North Carolina, to visit my mother-in-law, because I have many flaws, but I'm not a bad son-in-law. And I went to visit her and pay my respects and spend some time with her. Following day, I went to ride a famous motorcycle road called the Tail of the Dragon. And the Tail of the Dragon is on the border between North Carolina and Tennessee. It's 11 miles long, 319 curves. It was exciting, exhilarating. Not just me, but all the other people were like going to town, like really pushing it. I was like my old person on the bike, minding my own business. Wonderful ride, wonderful road. And from there I got through Tennessee to Cumming, Georgia, right outside Lake Lanier, to visit Rose and Shakar Walter. Do you guys remember them, Rose and Shakar? They used to sit on that side in the back. They baptized their children right here, Samara and Samuel, now almost 5 years old. And they're the cutest little kids. We have dinner together, and I asked, they just started, going to go to school, and I asked Samara, who's your best friend? And she said, my brother. Oh. And I said, who's your best friend? He said, my sister. That's nice. I can tell you that's not the answer at my home. But we have a wonderful time, and then in the morning we went to church at Christ the King Lutheran Church. So I got on the bike, they walked on their car. I was on the bike with all my stuff, my gear, parked the bike on the parking lot, go to church, wonderful church. They have beautiful stained glass windows, but not like old school stained glass windows, but like modern looking stained glass windows, if that makes sense. If you guys been to other churches, beautiful, beautiful congregation, super nice. At the end of worship service, we were shaking hands, saying goodbye. I go to my bike, and I see this family just flagging me. And when you don't know if they're flagging you or someone else, I'm thinking, it's the first time here, so it can't be me. And I'm like looking around, and me? Yes. And this is a family who got late to church, so it's not just us. People do arrive late at church. And they saw the bike, and turns out that they're bikers too. And the father and son ride motorcycles, and they're going to go on a motorcycle trip to Maine. And I said, that's awesome. Please stop by at Good Shepherd when you come up. And I said, this is what I do. Go down the road. I'm Pastor Jay from Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Glen Rock. Please stop by. Follow us on Instagram, on social media. Sure they did. In small world, their daughter is going to college at Roanoke College. And they went to visit Roanoke College and met Pastor Dribis because she will be worshiping at his church. So it's all a big Lutheran family. All roads lead to the Lutheran church. You heard it here first. So after worship, I got back on the bike and went on another famous motorcycle road from Lake Lanier down to Stone Mountain outside of Atlanta. And then in Atlanta, I visited a couple that I married 14 years ago, Eleanor and Graham, wonderful couple. They have a lovely family, and it was so nice to see them all these years later and the life they have built together. From there, I went south to Morrow, Georgia. I've never been to Morrow, Georgia, so my first time. And I went there because Rebecca McCormick, that's Lou Scuderi's daughter, if you remember her. Rebecca works in the largest motorcycle gear retail store in the country, and they have stores all over the place. And she told me to stop at this place and talk with Derek, who was the manager, a co-worker, and a friend of hers. So there I was on my bike, walking in and said, I'm looking for Derek. And who are you? Well, I'm Rebecca McCormick's friend. So where is he? And he came out, and we talked, and it was great to remember and have those connections together. And I took a picture, sent it to, of course, in our post, but also back to Rebecca. And fun fact, Rebecca sent that picture to her boss, because according to her, her boss is a big church guy. And he will appreciate to have, her pastor visiting one of the stores in southern Atlanta, southern Georgia. From there, back on the bike to Fort Moore, formerly Fort Benning, now Fort Moore. You can watch the movie We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson. Remember that movie, We Were Soldiers? That guy in the movie is General or Colonel Moore, and the fort was rechristened on his name now. And Pastor Rachel Sarkey, or Chaplain Rachel Sarkey, gave me an amazing tour of the fort, and it was so inspiring to see her at work in full uniform, of course, and walking around the fort and breaking bread with her with our MRE. First time for me. That's meals ready to eat, and they are ready to eat, so I enjoy that. So that was the trip going south. Next week I'm going to talk about the trip going north. But going south, that was the trip. So let me talk about roads. One of the things that I learned on this trip is that roads don't operate themselves, that roads don't maintain themselves, that bridges do not repair themselves or rebuild themselves, that roads have to be maintained. And I was blessed to ride these beautiful roads that you will think, who will keep these up? And sure enough, they were pristine, beautiful bridges, great scenery, overlooks, everything ship-shape, including 95 that you can imagine was being reconstructed and rebuilt. Seems like every single mile. There were like orange cones somewhere. That it's frustrating, of course, when you're driving, but it means that someone is updating this, someone is fixing this road. So that made me think about the roads that we have among us, the road that leads us to each other. How do we maintain those roads? How do we maintain the road that we have between here, our church in Glenrock, New Jersey, Good Shepherd Lutheran Church, and little Samara and Samuel down in Cumming, Georgia, who were baptized here? Baptized here. And you may remember the words of the liturgy, don't you? The words of the liturgy, when we say, I say to you, people of God, do you promise to support Samuel and Samara and to pray for them in their life in Christ? And what do you say? We do. We do. We promise to keep that road maintained. We promise to keep that connection alive. We promise to be in charge of keeping up that connection. And later in the year, when we get Evelyn and Evan to be baptized at this church, it's the same thing. And those of you who have been confirmed here, those of you who have been baptized here, those of you who have been married here, those are roads that we share with each other. And we are to maintain those roads. So going down on the motorcycle, I have a lot of time to think. And one of the things that I was thinking was how to be church in this 21st century of ours. What's the role of our generation in an environment where people don't go to church anymore, especially in the Northeast? What's the role of you and I being here on a Sunday morning and those of you watching from home in an environment where everybody expects you not to go to church, not to care, and be busy doing something else? So as I was putting those miles on the road, I was thinking that, at least for me, maybe the reason I'm here is to keep this road maintained, is to be able to keep this road maintained for the future, for those wanderers who may come in the future, for those people who may come and need to find a well-maintained road back home, a well-maintained road back to the well, a well-maintained road back to God. So I am renewed, and my cup is running over after my trip, because I see Good Shepherd as this place that we maintain together, a sanctuary that we care for together. In not only the building, but the faith. That whoever comes through our doors, you can say, we are still here. It has not been easy, but we are still here. It's been a challenge, but we are still here. We feel overwhelmed at times, but we are still here. The seed is good, and it gives 100-fold, 60-fold, and sometimes even 30-fold. So let me go now into the parable itself of the sower and the seed. It's a beautiful parable, well known to all of us, I'm sure. And all these seeds that go in different terrain, and sometimes, even though the seed is good, we are not. And good people, say bad things. So people who go to church every Sunday are the worst neighbors. And people who go to church every Sunday, speak like a sailor. We're all in different places and do different things. John Osborne was telling me the story about being in the South. And we're talking about how is it to be in the South, and do they realize that you're not from the South right off the bat? And he said, well, What they notice is that I don't have a southern accent, so most likely I'm not from around here. And he told me the story about this guy who said to him, "Excuse me, do you know what the difference is between a Yankee and a damn Yankee?" And John said, "No, I don't." And the guy responded, "There is none." Yeah, okay. That's a charmer. That seed did not find good soil in this guy. But the seed is good. So going back to the parable, I must confess to you that I know nothing about sowing anything. I don't have a green thumb. I don't think I have a thumb at all. I mean, planting is not my thing. But preaching on this text over the years, I have to get acquainted with the way we sow stuff. Of course, the way we sow is not the way they used to sow back in the time of Jesus. But even at the time of Jesus, when he's telling this story, people didn't sow that way either. Because think about this guy. He's sowing, and seed is going to the path, to the way, to the road. Seed is going to the thorns. Seed is going to rocky ground. Seed is going all over the place. Where's the manager? Where's the manager saying, "Listen, buddy, it's called sowing, not throwing stuff out." When you sow, you prepare the ground. And when you're a sower, you know exactly where the seed goes. It goes in the ground that you prepared. That's called farming. This guy in the story doesn't know how to sow at all, and he just willy-nilly throwing seed anywhere, everywhere. And that's the beauty of the story. I highlight this because it means that the sower has such faith in the seed. The seed is so good that he just throws the seed abundantly all over the place. The seed is good. The seed is given by Jesus, the Son of God. The Son of God that has no sin, but who was not without suffering, because Jesus Christ did suffer. The Son of God did suffer. And it's out of pain that we receive grace and forgiveness. So when we encounter others in the world, when we live our happy lives and we find people who don't measure up, let's remember that the seed is good, that the seed comes from the Lord. And wherever you are in your journey, we uphold that seed of baptism, that seed of communion, that seed of bread and wine, that seed of salvation, that seed of forgiveness, that seed of second chances, that seed that gives you 160 and 30-fold. A hurt seed is still a seed from the Lord, and the seed is good. A mad seed, it's still a seed from the Lord, and the seed is good. A broken seed, it's still a seed from the Lord, and the seed is good. A stressed out seed, it's still a seed from the Lord, and the seed is good. An overwhelmed seed, it's still a seed of the Lord, and the seed is good. The Lord is good. And the seed give us 100 and then 60 and then 30% fold. Going down south, one of the beautiful things that I saw was how this seed was sown among so many of us. Little children baptized in Cumming, Georgia from Good Shepherd. Young adults going to college and finding their way back to church at College Lutheran. And Chaplain Rachel Sarkey, that truly is doing an amazing ministry. Imagine hot weather, noon. We're walking around with Chaplain Sarkey. She's in full uniform. I'm not. And you have all the soldiers, going up and down and shooting and lifting things up and marching and forming and whatnot. And these young men, 19, 20 years old, they will come to Chaplain Sarkey as we are walking around, and they will come to her like very, straight up, very respectfully and say, "Excuse me, ma'am, could we have a moment with you?" And she will say, "Yes." She will go outside and speak with these young men. Young men in a fort, training in the heat, stressed out, but being drawn to speak with the chaplain, being drawn to speak with the chaplain, being drawn to find a way to speak with the chaplain, to find a path to speak with the chaplain, to find a road back to the well, back to God, back to faith. So the question, where is God in the summertime? Well, God is on the road. God is out in the world, well and alive. And we're keeping this faith alive right here this Sunday. Even in the worst of circumstances, even when it gets bleak, God is out there in the most unexpected places, like Wilmington, North Carolina. I was there, North Carolina. I thought I would stop for the night on the border between South Carolina and North Carolina. But turns out I couldn't find a hotel. And the internet, for some reason, was spotty, and I didn't have internet on the phone. So I figured, well, I'm just going to ride on the main road, and there's got to be a hotel somewhere. And I'm riding, and there's no hotel. And I'm riding, and there's no hotel. And at some point, I need to stop riding because I'm tired. And when you're tired and you ride, that's where bad things happen to you. Finally, I found internet, so I stopped on the side of the road. I'm looking for a hotel. "I'm sorry, sir, there's no room. I'm sorry, sir, there's no room. I'm sorry, sir, there's no room." And I keep widening the area for me to look for the hotel until I got to Wilmington, North Carolina. There was like 60 miles more than I wanted to ride that day, 7:30 p.m. already. So, "Yes, we have a room." "Okay, let me book it right now." 60 miles later, in other words, an hour and 30 minutes later, I roll into Wilmington, North Carolina, looking for the hotel, following the phone, direction system, and I get to the corner, downtown Wilmington. Anyone has been to Wilmington, North Carolina? No? One witness. 2, 3, 4, okay. You get to Wilmington, North Carolina, downtown, and I found the hotel, finally, 9:30 p.m. at night, on the corner of Grace Street and Second Chances, also known as Second Avenue. Right there was the hotel. And I look up to the heavens, said, "Lord, you provide. You provide grace. You provide second chances. You provide shelter. You provide provision. You provide forgiveness. You provide it all. Because I'm telling you, the Lord is good." Amen.